In the fabled land of Northern California, nestled in the Valley of Sacramento, two friends begin a journey to enlighten the world about their experience living life as a Xennial. But what is a Xennial, you may ask? If you wish to know, then follow them on their adventures.
Welcome to the Xennial Chronicles. This is James.
This is Mike.
And we're coming to you on Sunday again. The reason we're coming to you on Sunday again is...
Nobody
Mike
knows
had
that. Nobody knows that unless you tell them.
I'm telling them on purpose because this is going to be part of what our story is today. Mike had a pet thing he had to deal with.
Oh, it was a f***ing emergency, man. It was a big deal. And don't get me wrong, like most of the time, like when I have pet emergencies, it's normally dog related. I can get into the story now if you want. Like it's some pretty crazy shit. So
no, typically Mike is right. It's typically dog related. They do have 4 small dogs, one of which is a spoiled little shit.
Well,
the other 3 have their various things going on. Sorry, but Adam is a spoiled little shit. Let's be honest.
Honestly, he's a better behaved out. He's one of the better behaved out of the 4.
He's still spoiled as hell.
Why do you say that?
Because he is. I've seen him.
Honestly, no. Clint
rotten.
Clint is the more spoiled of the 2.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know.
Adam is insistent. Adam loves playing and he loves like that kind of stuff. Don't get me wrong. But as far as spoiled, no, Clint's the spoiled one, man.
Okay.
I'll say that flat out. Like Clint Eastwood is the spoiled dog. Adam West is insistent and much more dog-like than Clint is, but Clint is definitely the more spoiled of the 2. I would consider that.
On that.
Understood. Hey man, Clint's a quiet dog. He's hella chill. So yeah, I completely get it. Okay, so getting into this, so we have a menagerie in this house. I know I've talked about it multiple times. But
this is one of the things that Mike and I share is the fact that we both have zoos basically at our homes.
Oh yeah.
Focusing in both cases, focusing on both reptiles and animals that most people would consider rodents, even though many of our animals that are of the appearance of rodent variety are actually not rodent variety. For instance, we have 2 guinea pigs that are guinea pigs, for anybody that doesn't know, are not actually rodents. People will lump them in with rodents, but they are not. Like hamsters are, mice are, rats are, but guinea pigs not.
Right.
And you have a few chinchillas, right? Or at least 1.
We have 2 chinchillas. We had some rats, but they passed away. It took them a very long time to do so. I don't know what it is about Tash. She has I don't know how she has the capability of maintaining animals as long as she can, but she does extremely well. There were a pair of feeder rats, I think, that we went to a store. They were pretty much gifted to us. There were a pair of feeder rats that we have, 2 or 3 feeder rats that the store employees found too cute to give out to feed. So they decided to give them out to somebody who would keep them as pets, and we did. And we had the rat set up in a little cage and everything. We actually had 4 of them. We had 4 of them at one point, and eventually that number whittled down, but it took years.
Rats, just for people who don't know, who haven't kept them as pets, usually rats have a 2 to 3 year lifespan. They don't live much beyond that.
Yeah. By the way, just to label this off, so I have this thing about myself where I like to, if we ever name chickens, animals in general, I have the dumbest names that I can come up with at that point in time. And if I can't come up with an absolutely stupid name, I tend to gravitate towards human names. So obviously, like Adam West, Clint Eastwood, like I named those 2 dogs. But then there are the other names normally that are named by either her or somebody else. They tend to kind of like gravitate towards, little cutesy animal names. Like we have 2 chinchillas. One's named Willow. The other's named Bubbles. We have 2 chickens. We have 5 total chickens. One is named Nugget, the other is named Noodle, and then the other 3 I named are Harpo, Squat, and Benjamin Franklina. So and we call her Benny for short. Like it's that kind of dumb. But I was very proud of the rats. We named the rats Blanche, Sophia, Dorothy, and Rose. because there were 4 of them and they were all female and they lived forever. They lived like the standard like lifespan of a rat is like 1.5 to 2 years. These rats lived like 3.5 years. Essentially,
anything over 3 years, that's a major feat with rats.
Dude, we had more than one hamster that lived. Like there was one that like died. A little dwarf hamster, and dwarf hamsters are absolutely adorable. There's one that died like at like 6 months or something like that, and then we got another one, and then that one lived for 4 years. And I've never seen a hamster live for 4 years in my life. And they look so fucking weird. They look like little cotton balls with legs because all the hair on their legs falls off. And you think they're like this little pudgy little thing. No, that's all fur. Like they're all little skinny, tiny things. You'd figure that they were like these little fat things because they just sit there and eat food all day and then they store food and then they eat it. And that's not what happens with them. They get skinny or they are skinny all the time. And it's just all of the fur makes them look so pudgy. When it's all fur, it's crazy. But anyway.
Yeah, no, one of the sister-in-laws who lived with us at one time, not the current one, but another one, had I believe it was either a hamster or a mouse, but I believe it was a hamster that she fed like the worst things possible. she was like feeding it junk food, chips and whatnot. That thing lived for almost 4 years, and it was there was some kind. I think they called it the Franken hamster or something. It was some weird name.
They looked. It
just would not die.
Yeah.
But that's the weird thing about any kind of pets. Dogs and cats we've domesticated for long enough that we kind of have an understanding of what their lifespans will be. Mm-hmm. But even they can be a little bit goofy with you. I know one of our dogs, one of the little dogs that we have, because we have 2. One of them, he's got to be at least 13, 14 years old.
Wow, that's an old dog.
And he's kicking around like there's nothing. I mean, he's still got all kinds of energy. He looks a little bit grizzled, but otherwise he's just a ball of energy. With the 1-year-old dog that we have, who is one of the few that we didn't name, because again, just like you, we like to have fun names. You remember the dog that I had that was named Caitlin Bree.
Yes.
For those of you who are Clerks fans, you'll get it. I force the issue, since my wife is the one who loves to get the animals. Mm-hmm. I force the issue of me getting to name the various animals. But this young dog that we have, who's barely or just now a year old, he was gotten at Christmas time for a family, so they named him Jolly, which is just annoying, but that's the only thing he responds to, so that's what we got to go with. But yeah, this old dog, he runs around with him with no problem. We have a collection of bearded dragons where some of them we've only had for a few years and they've died. Some we've had for 5, 6, 7 years. We have one, which is the one I got to name. His name is Fuzzy, because I thought it was really funny to name a bearded dragon Fuzzy.
That's awesome. I love it.
He's like 16 years old.
Oh man.
And bearded dragons usually in the best situations live 10 to 13 years. He's 16 years old now. He doesn't like to move around much anymore. He moves very little. He eats, but he's a little slow doing it, and he's very curmudgeonly. I'm the only one who's allowed to reach in his cage and touch him. Everybody else he gets pissed at.
Oh yeah.
But otherwise, he's still alive. So you never know what's going to happen with these pets. But what Mike's emergency was about one of these reptilian pets.
Yes.
One of the largest of the pets in his household.
Pretty much, yes. She's a big girl. So we have a whole lizard room, snakes and all that kind of stuff, little tiny geckos, and then there's this giant cage in the back corner that has a 4.5 foot long rhinoceros iguana. And to those that are not necessarily understanding of iguanas, this is actually kind of part of the story. This is why it's kind of a big deal. Okay, so a rhinoceros iguana is a rock iguana. They're a desert iguana. They're not like the jungle iguanas. They're not like the ones that fall out of the trees in Florida in the winter. They're different. They are iguanas, but they're basically ground and rock iguanas. So they don't climb trees and shit. And the reason why this is important is because we have a cage built for her. It's about 4 by 4 by 8, and it has inside the cage, we have a couple of little, tree limbs so that she can climb onto an upper basking spot that has two functions. So there's this shelving. What's up? What's up?
I want to add some clarity to your measurement so that people understand what you mean by the 4x4x8.
Oh, 4
it is
foot.
It's 4 foot tall, 4 foot deep, and 8 foot long. So the actual footprint of the cage is a 4 foot by 8 foot footprint. It's not 8 foot tall. Or the
no,
other dimension. I just want to make sure people can see the dimension properly.
Thank you.
With a green iguana, for instance, the type that you're talking about falling out of the trees in Florida, because people get them as pets and then they get giant and people are like, oh crap, I didn't want one this big. I thought it would still stay small and cute, and it's big and it's mean and it's evil and it's got razor sharp claws.
And it climbs your curtains and it bites you.
And it whips the shit out of you with its tail.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to let it free because it's Florida and, whatever. Those things they're arboreal creatures. They're tree-dwelling creatures. So they would need, if you had a cage that was 4 foot by 8 foot footprint, you'd still need it to be about 8 foot tall for a green iguana because it's going to want to climb to the tallest fucking place.
Yeah.
This is not necessary for yours. Like you say, it's a ground dwelling.
Yeah.
So the 4 by 8 footprint is the necessary to give it enough room to move around, have a hide spot, have all those things, but still 4 foot high to give it a little bit of area to climb onto, but not too much because climbing on rocks is one thing, climbing on trees totally different thing.
Absolutely. So this is
wanted some clarity.
8 foot wide, 4 tall, and 4 deep. So thank you for clarifying that. So they do still like to climb. They like to climb on rocks. They like to climb on each other. Like that's just kind of the thing with lizards. They're kind of like turtles that way, I guess. Turtles do the same kind of stuff. But anyway, so we have this shelving in the back corner. It is meant so that she can get close to her basking lamp so she can get her UV and keep her body heat up and all this kind of stuff. And then underneath it is just a cave dwelling area so that she can go to sleep. Now, this basking area was not quite as far as the front of the cage. And we did a little bit of modification to it as well. Initially, the cage has 2 doors that are about the size of the front of the cage. It's one door on the left, one on the right. The door on the left, both doors had hardware cloth, but the hardware cloth that we bought was not quite big enough for the entire door. So it's not like one sheet of hardware cloth rolled out and then fastened into in between a couple of 2x4s is how we built the door frame. So it's like 2 2x4s thick, right? So it's a 4-inch-ish thick door frame. And this is important. This is why the reason why I'm describing this is because it's important to the story.
By the way, part of this I want to add for people who aren't reptile aficionados.
Yeah.
Iguanas are powerful creatures.
They can
when they get to full adult growth, they are powerful creatures.
Oh yeah.
They are they can be amazing and wonderful loving creatures, but they are still powerful. And you do need, when you're building an enclosure for them for their adult, because you can start with smaller enclosures and store-bought enclosures for when they are small, but eventually this is one of those things that like you need to know if you're going to get into the raising and keeping of a large lizard like this.
Yeah.
Tegus would fall into that category too.
Yes.
These things get big, they get powerful, and they need enclosures that are strong built enclosures because they will just as an act of being, creatures and curiosity and wanting to do whatever they want to do, they will, push around an enclosure.
Yeah.
And if it's not built strong, they will find places to break free from it and destroy the enclosure. They're creatures.
They are definitely little escape artists, man. They do not like being kept up in a cage. They do, and also giving them the opportunity to get out and get around so that they have their territory, but they have their ability to explore is also very important.
Yes. You're going to give them that enrichment of being able to get some time around. But the biggest thing is, again, building an enclosure for them. For anybody listening that's thinking, a green iguana or any kind of an iguana would be a great pet for my kids to start off with. Be prepared to build a gigantic enclosure. It's one of those. I had a green iguana in the past, and we sadly we lost him. But not lost him. He passed. Oh. But it was one of the things that we knew we were looking to have to set up, and especially for green iguanas, they love to have outside enclosures. That's like a huge deal. We had been planning for an indoor-outdoor enclosure that we were going to build into like through a window, basically have some indoor inside for them, and then the outdoor built and use the window as the conjoining between the two, because they need tons of space. This is not something like, again, like the bearded dragons that we have a bunch of. A 40-gallon breeder tank is more than enough for the entire lifespan of a bearded dragon. You get them out, get them to run around a little bit, get them some enrichment. But as far as their main tank they live in, 40-gallon breeder is enough because they don't get that big.
Yeah,
something
absolutely.
like an iguana, that thing gets huge. You need to you're not going to buy a tank or an enclosure for an adult iguana of any variety, rhinoceros, rock, green. It doesn't matter what kind of iguana you're getting. You are not just going to buy an enclosure for that. You need to be able to build one that is big enough to give them enough space and is strong enough to keep them contained when you need to keep them contained.
Yeah,
and that's why you have that level of strength on it. But please continue.
yes.
Sorry.
Okay, so going into the details of this. Essentially, the doors are built the way that they are, but they were a certain size, and the hardware cloth couldn't be fully stretched, so we had to kind of like double layer it over a couple of rungs of hardware cloth. So, this is the part that's important, and the part that's kind of tough to talk about. So, what ended up happening was, when we show up in the room, especially when we have food, the first thing Doodle likes to do is jump up on the door of the cage. Because she's like, you have food. Now, here's the thing about lizards. They don't necessarily understand if you have food, they're not looking at you as a provider. They're looking at you as, you have food, I want the food, give me the food. They don't have this understanding. So they can look relatively aggressive. So you kind of have to play with that aggression and do things like target training them and that kind of stuff.
Brains are tiny. Their brains are tiny.
Their brains are tiny. They are like very small children, but they don't understand. Like, there's no such thing as courtesy with a lizard, essentially.
No.
They expect food. They know food is there. They know where food is supposed to be. So if you come in, they're hanging around their food bowl. They need food. They're hungry. You need to feed them. Yeah. That's the way it works.
The bearded dragons like to dive bomb the food dish.
Yes.
When my wife feeds them,
yes,
they're pretty, for the most part, they're pretty docile. They're pretty easygoing. Bearded dragons are, by the way, again, listening to this as any Xennials listening to this that are parents and are thinking about getting into any kind of reptiles for pets for their kids.
Yeah.
Which again, it can be teaching kids to take care of pets can be a very good thing, but keep in mind you're probably going to be doing 90% of the work, so just expect that. But again, use it. It can be used very good as a teaching thing. It can be very enriching for both the pet and the child. Bearded dragons are actually one of the better reptiles to have as a starter pet. Even though people will maybe go into the geckos or things like that, though geckos are actually much more intricate creatures to take care of than bearded dragons. They require a lot more things happening within their enclosures to give them the necessary things, and they're also you got to be a little bit softer on the handling of any of the geckos. Some don't like to be handled at all and can't be handled at all. Some you really have to have a deft hand with geckos. Bearded dragons are fairly hardy guys, and for the most part, they're pretty good. Most of them are pretty good about being handled to some extent.
Yeah.
So they're not too bad, but they still love when my wife is dropping in food for them. They do love to dive bomb the food dish. Luckily, they do wait until she's done dropping the food in most of the time. Say most of the time.
Yeah.
But they love the dive bomb of the food dish. It's kind of funny to watch them. And yeah, the second that the wife goes into the reptile room that we have with the bucket of food that she brings around to everybody, it's right up against the glass, pawing at the glass, wanting that food. So, and imagine that in the thing that's the size of a medium-sized dog and more muscular than a medium-sized dog. That's what you're looking at.
Oh yeah. So, essentially what this is about is that front grating. And at one point what we did was, so we had the little cave area. It was oriented about the back, and there was about a foot long space, about 10 and a half inches of space between the end of this shelving area, cave area, and the front of the cage. And this side of the cage that was that the basking side was on in order to retain the heat in that area, so it was easier for her to keep heat, especially in the winter. We took a piece of plexiglass, we cut it to the door frame, and we attached it to the outside, like the outside front. This is all important. So essentially what happened was I was out and about on Friday going and grabbing something for my wife, and she calls me at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm just doing a little bit of errand running. She calls me at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and she says a piece of her tail had broken off. Now, just to explain to people, most lizards, including an iguana of this size, have defense mechanisms where they can detach their tail so that they can escape from predators. This normally only happens in larger lizards when they haven't yet reached adulthood. If they are babies, they're little tiny guys, they will detach their tails on purpose in order to escape predators, because most of the time a predator will catch a lizard by its tail because it's running away. It allows it to detach, escape, run out, and it's kind of crazy because the tail will wiggle around like it's alive. It's just a defense mechanism. It's an incredible evidence of evolution. I think it's fucking cool. However, this was not the story with Doodle. Now, Doodle, I think, may
real quick.
Huh?
Just real quick. That's
What's
why
up?
I said that geckos can be a little bit more problematic as a first pet for reptile owners.
Mm-hmm.
Geckos have a tendency to detach their tail a lot quicker and in a lot lower stress situations than many other lizards. They're very, very delicate with the tail.
Geckos are delicate and high strung, man. They really are. Yes. So you got to be careful with them. Now, in this situation, what we had was an unfortunate accident. So somehow, now her tail is pretty long. Her tail makes up just over a third of her body length. So she's about, like I said, she's about 4.5 feet long. That tail's probably about a good couple of feet at least, right? So, and one of the things that my wife was very proud of was the fact that she had her entire tail. She had boasted about it for years. It is not common for iguanas to have their entire tail. It doesn't do anything to change, like, say, the general monetary value of the iguana, but it is something that you can essentially champion about your animal. It means that your animal's been very taken care of. They've been in low-stress situations. Things have not happened to it. No physical danger has happened to it. It's a sign that you care.
It's a feather in your cap, basically.
It's a feather in the cap. That's essentially what it is. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So, unfortunately, she calls me about 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday and says part of her tail's broken off. Now, what she had seen was she didn't know where the piece of tail was. It could have gotten caught in something. Sometimes that can happen. But she was extremely distraught because that meant that this little thing had an open wound in the back of her tail. So essentially we didn't know exactly how long the piece was, but we knew a piece of it had been broken off. She's freaking out. She's like, okay, I got to get in there, but we can't bathe her because she's got an open wound. We have to let her heal, and then we have to find the piece of tail and see how big it is, and blah, 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 blah. And I completely understood, but she was not in good spirits at all for like 2 days. And there's a part of her that, because she was so proud of that, there's a part of her that felt guilty, like she hadn't been taking care of her. And honestly, I don't necessarily blame her. This was something that was a bit of an oversight, but it wasn't something that was regularly expected.
No.
In this entire time, she had been in that cage for about 5 years now, and there hadn't been an incident like this.
And I can put this in the realm of we talked on here before about the fact that one of the fundamental differences between my household and Mike's household, and this is fundamental differences between many households, is the fact that in your household your pets are very much more like the children of your guys' life,
yes,
because you don't have children,
right?
And that is a perfectly, just, I want to make sure to put the blanket out there because it is something that does need to be said, sadly, still in our society. It is very much okay for people to not have children. That is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Children may bring happiness to people, they definitely will bring a bunch of stress. That's just life.
Yeah,
any
for sure.
other thing, anything at all that you have to be, any living thing you have to be responsible for is going to bring you more stress just by the very nature of things.
Yeah.
But getting married and having children is not what we are supposed to do. What we're supposed to do is do the thing that makes us the most fulfilled and happy while not hurting other people or ourselves.
Yeah.
And for some people, that is having children. For some people, it's not. And it's perfectly okay in both situations. Both things are fine. Both things are wonderful. In fact, I'm a firm believer it's better to not have children if you're not ready to, if you don't want to deal with the stress specifically of children. It's better just to not have them. And that is okay.
Yeah.
That's perfectly fine. Parents, what I want the connection I want to make is for many of us that are parents. We do what we can to set up the environments as best as we can for our children. And there may be people that don't like the idea of me comparing, pets to children. To many people, they are the same thing. To many people, they aren't, and that's fine. But you're the parents that try to do the best, try to give the children all the tools that they possibly can, teach them the best they can, and then something ends up hurting their kid. They feel that exact same feeling of, what did I do wrong? I thought I set everything up perfectly. That guilt feeling of oh God, am I responsible for this? And I will say this: there are some times that yes, you may be as the parent or as the pet owner, yes, you may be responsible for this. One of the biggest regrets in my entire life, one of the things that I carry with me, and I literally carry it with me as a reminder not to ever be this person again and not to make these same mistakes again, is the fact that I had a pet, a dog that died due to, and it's hard to admit it, but it is the truth, due to my neglect, my personal bad pet ownership. It is my fault, completely 100% my fault that this pet died. I was a bad owner. I was a bad person at that moment in my life. Regardless of anything else, I have it. Mike knows. Everybody around me knows. And when people see me, they ask me about it, and I tell them what it is. I get surprised looks from people. And I'll say what it is on here. I have tattoos on my body that it's the name of that pet. And it's not there because of in memorial of the pet or anything. It's there to remind me of one of, if not the worst moment of myself in my life, the moment that I was the worst person I could possibly be. And it's a reminder every single day to not ever be that person again. Every time I see those tattoos, it reminds me you made a horrible mistake that cost the life of a living thing. And not just one horrible mistake, multiple, leading up to the death of that animal. It's my reminder to never do that again. How horrible and wrong it was the way that I did things during that time in my life. That one is definitely on me because I made all of those mistakes. And yes, I can say that I've done better since then, but that's regardless of the fact that things still happened. I still did all the things that I did, and it still resulted in what it resulted in. So yes, that one is my fault. But in many instances, as a parent, as a pet owner, these things aren't necessarily your fault. Things do just happen sometimes.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what the situation was, I think. We did everything within our power, within our capability, and within our knowledge to create a situation that would allow her to be safe and to be happy and all of that other stuff that you look for when you are trying to be a caring pet parent. Unfortunately, a mistake happened. This mistake was that when she called me and told me that a piece of her tail had ripped off, she hadn't seen where it was, but she saw that there was an open wound on the end of her tail. And she was absolutely distraught. Well, eventually, what happened later that evening, we found out what had happened. So, as I was describing the back shelving area and about that foot worth of clearance, sometimes the thing about lizards is they don't really have a lot of wherewithal with having to do with their position, and she falls off the edge of that thing all the time.
Again,
into the
brains.
Floor. It's just a standard thing.
Tiny brains.
Tiny brains indeed. So that's just kind of what happens. You can't do much about it. But the situation got a little complicated because she tends to fall off the front. Well, apparently what had happened was the plexiglass we had, in order to trap the heat, we had put on the outside of the door, thereby exposing the hardware cloth. We didn't think it was going to be a problem because she has climbed on that hardware cloth before without any problem. What had happened was, instead of getting onto the hardware cloth or trying to latch onto it, there was nobody in the room, which means that she just went onto the floor. Well, when she went onto the floor from that upper shelving area and just kind of dropped herself down to the floor, because I guess that's what she does sometimes, excuse me, the end of her tail had gotten caught in between the two layers of hardware cloth that we had clamped together. And we had actually clamped them with some other wire. But somehow, we don't know how it happened. The best thing we could guess is when she came off of that shelving, excuse me, when she came off that shelving, her tail got caught in between two layers of hardware cloth, and possibly also in the layer of plexiglass, and got caught. And as she came down, that piece of her tail ripped straight off the end of her tail.
You know, this is while this is far more dramatic in the sense of the open wound, this is very similar to the story we had last week about my idiot cat shocking, or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, my idiot cat shocking himself.
Oh yeah,
with the damn water fountain. And in fact, we've had to redo, since then we got a different water dispenser for them that's not a motorized one, doesn't plug in, but we've actually had to redo that wall of the kitchen. We've moved a bunch of things around because we have other things. We decided to move things and wanted to have other things plugged into that socket, since the water thing wasn't going to be there, but we actually moved stuff around so that we have something in front of that socket. In front of that socket, covering that socket now, just in case the cat decides to be stupid again and knows the socket with something else plugged into it. We were just like, no, we can't just plug something in and leave it uncovered now, because idiot might try to electrify himself.
Yeah, I'm quite confident after that experience that cat has definitely learned to stay the hell away from that area in regard to the he still hangs around there.
No, because when we got the new water dish, we put the new water dish in the same place, and it's one of those gravity feed water things.
And he was hanging around the plug socket still?
Well, it covered the plug socket because we put it as close to the plug socket as we can, the jug part, and he was still trying to get back behind it over to the plug socket again.
I think there's something he finds comfort in dark places, which makes sense. He's a cat.
It's not a dark place though. It's perfectly well lit.
Yeah, but it's hidden in a corner. It's protective. He can see everything from in front of him.
I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it is he's a bit of a masochistic little cat. So that's kind of his history. He's a cat that this as much as you kind of have to work around like the habits of the animals, and sometimes you have to customize the home to idiot proof the house. I completely understand. Cat gonna cat. Like he's just gonna do what he does. This is the cat that like we have those bamboo fake swords.
Yes.
Like you see them in wrestling where they'll smack each other with them. I have a couple of those that I've done sword practice and stuff with, because I'm a geek and I'm into D&D and that kind of crap.
Right.
We have those in our front room, and we use them to call the kids downstairs. Instead of screaming the kids' names, we actually tap on the ceiling with them to let the kids know that we need them downstairs. It's a lot better than screaming kids' names throughout the house.
Yeah.
So we tap on the ceiling because the kids, our two boys, their rooms are right above where our living room is.
Oh, that's
so
funny.
We just grab the thing and tap on the ceiling. When I do that,
do you do it like? I have to ask, do you do it based upon like which room it is? So you tap the left side or the right side of the ceiling to see which kid you're trying to call down? Or do you just tap on the ceiling in general and both of them come out of their rooms?
We tap on the ceiling in general it's typically for one of the kids, because the other one usually has his door open, so we can actually call his name and he hears us.
Oh, okay.
But here's the fun part about it. If the general tapping does not get the one kid downstairs, I will actually go right to where directly under his bed is, and I'll tap directly under his bed to get his attention. So yes, there is some directionality to it. But this idiot cat, every time I grab that thing to try to get the kid's attention, he runs right at me, and he literally wants me to smack him with the stick. he will lay there as I smack him. I don't do it very hard, but he just loves to be smacked. When we were doing Christmas presents and wrapping Christmas presents, I come out with a cardboard roll from wrapping paper.
Oh yeah.
I can sit and beat the cat with it, and it's not like he's pawing at it and playing with it unless it hits him in the face. He just stands there and lets me just smack him with it, and he's just, yep, smack me, keep smacking me. I love
That's
it.
That's a pretty docile cat, dude. Wow.
He's both our cats are fairly calm. The other one we have, the giant fat black one that we have, you can pick him up and hold him upside down, or I can at least. I can pick him up and hold him upside down, and he just will hang there like, "What's up? How you doing? It's all good."
Well, you're talking like a little tap or something like that.
And
the cat, I was gonna say, if the cat is unbothered and he seems fine with it, like it's not really a big deal. If he sees this as an opportunity to play, like, I'm sorry, a cat's gonna let you know when something bothers them.
Oh yeah, and he the thing is, it's not just like I'm hunting him down with this thing.
Yeah,
he seeks me out and he wants it. If I like stick the thing in the ground and just hold it in the ground, he will bap himself against it.
Oh, so there's something he likes about it. There's like a sensory thing that he digs. Okay.
Yeah, so he's a bit of a masochistic cat. But anyway, yeah, we had to reorganize that whole wall of the kitchen just to stop him from getting to that outlet now, because I don't know, maybe he got a high off the feeling of being shocked. I don't know. He's a weird ass cat. But
for the better, obviously. Like, don't give your cat access to plug sockets. Okay.
No, it's not a good idea.
Do that.
We're afraid he'd start licking the damn thing, hoping to get a little bit of a zizzle going on or something.
Yeah.
This is one of the weirdest cats I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of cats in my life. But anyway,
so
you try to set these things up, things do happen.
Yeah.
So
we went into emergency mode in order to remedy the situation. So we ended up taking that plexiglass, and the plexiglass we had we had to cut ourselves, and the reason why we put it on the outside. Oh, that's right. I get to explain that. So the plexiglass we had, the reason why it was on the outside was because we did not have the proper tools to cut the plexiglass to size. And when we went out to get the plexiglass, because we had to handle this for the winter, for some reason we went to, first off, we like going to Lowe's. So we go to Lowe's, but for some reason that day when we went, the glass cutting machine and the plexiglass cutting machine was out of order. So we just had to buy the full plate and then cut it to size. And when we cut it to size, we had to use like an X-Acto knife to cut it. And with plexiglass, you don't just, like, unless you have a machine that holds it together properly and all that kind of stuff, you can't just take to it with a saw or anything like that and do it. It doesn't work that way. Plexiglass vibrates a lot, and it's not easy to cut. So you have to just sit there and swipe at it and swipe at it and swipe at it with an X-Acto knife to get enough for it to break off clean. Well, it didn't break off that clean.
You score and snap, and it's very difficult to
it's
get
very
it
hard to do by hand. So unfortunately, when we cut
I'm going to say this about it.
What?
If somebody who's had enough experience at cutting plexi, take this from somebody who has actually worked at Home Depot.
Okay.
Who worked in the millworks department,
which
is the department that sells glass and sells plexiglass.
Mm-hmm.
If you the machines, you're right, are the cutters that are there. The only way that they'd be out of service is if they needed new blades, or the people just told you that because cutting plexi and cutting glass is a pain in the ass. It really, really is, especially plexi. Glass is so much easier to cut because you just score that thing like twice and then
it just
pops.
Shears. Yeah,
it pops fantastically. Plexi is a bitch to cut, even on the cutters that they have at Home Depot and Lowe's. It is a pain in the ass. And we were told, at least when I was working there, that if you can't get it cut with the machine, do not try to score and snap it, because unless you've got a lot of experience scoring and snapping, people that have the experience, they know exactly how to score it right and snap it right, and they get they know the exact right amount of pressure to do, because you can be in the process of trying to score it with your blade.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you can cut yourself
easy. If you put
easy.
too much pressure, it'll snap on you.
Oh yeah,
and so it can be a very difficult thing. And then it also depends on what grade of plexi you're working with. If you go into like the Lexan, oh shit, you do want to saw for that. There are specialized type saw blades that you want to use for that, and you want to make sure that everything is held down perfectly. So it is a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, definitely, and we learned that, and so what ended up with that piece of plexiglass was it had these sharp edges on the outer side that we were not comfortable with putting on the inside of the cage. So we just said, no, we're not doing that. So we we put it on the outside, which is what exposed the hardware cloth to her, which she had been exposed to the entire time, but may have also caused the pinch situation. So we got her taken care of with the plexiglass on the inside. We got a second piece professionally cut and put on the inside the first night, which was Friday, and we bandaged her tail up with vet wrap, which we also discovered apparently iguanas can see the color purple and are tempted to eat it. So after we put the vet wrap on her, which happened to be purple, we then watched her chase her tail, and we watched her to see if she could catch it, and she totally could. So we then had to remove that vet wrap and then reapply white vet wrap to it, and then she was unbothered by it. Just to let anybody know. An iguana, I think, because the color purple reacts to UV light, it is very appealing. So don't use the color purple if you are wrapping up a lizard. Just don't do it.
If you're going to show your lizard a Steven Spielberg movie, pick a better one.
Yes, exactly. Just don't. Wow, man, that's a deep cut.
They get mad at angry Danny Glover.
Yes, exactly. So
I only mentioned that because I was. It's been almost a year. I was forced to. Last year about this time, I was working in the home of a special needs individual, helping to give them care, and I was forced to watch that movie. And that is, I mean, it won Oscars and crap, and I think Oprah Winfrey and Whoopi Goldberg both were up for Oscars for that movie.
Oh, wow.
And I get it; it's a deep, emotional movie, but it's like. It's also a really, really tough. It's supposed to be. It's designed to be a tough movie to watch. God, it's so damn depressing. I left the house that day so depressed watching that movie. It's a messed up movie.
I've never seen it.
You will hate Danny Glover after that movie.
Really? Wow.
Absolutely. It was his first major film role too.
Really?
He is a fantastic. If you want to call it a villain, I mean, it's a drama, so it doesn't really have the same kind of hero villain tropes that you expect. He's just a mean, horrible, disgusting human being in the film. And he plays it to perfection. I mean, I've loved Danny Glover for years. I grew up on the Lethal Weapon movies. And, speaking of which, Danny Glover, when he's saying he's getting too old for this shit, he was in his early 40s. I just want to point that out. For all of us Xennials. He was in his early 40s, so that's where we all are. And I totally understand the sentiment. I'm getting too old for this shit. But no, he literally, I love Danny Glover. He's great. And watching that, I hated Danny Glover for a couple of days. And that's, mark of a good actor. He had just been a stage actor up until that point. Mark of a good actor for me to absolutely, completely, and utterly hate him. Let's also add that was Whoopi Goldberg's first real dramatic role, and she absolutely nailed it. Oprah Winfrey's first role, she nails it. I mean, everybody in the movie acts fantastically, but God, is it a damn depressing movie to watch? Really, really, really depressing movie to watch.
That's actually one thing that I tend to notice every time I see Oprah in anything. Is how fucking fantastic an actress she is. She's a fantastic actress. And it's like, you because she was familiarized with me as a talk show host, like, it was like, okay, so she's doing talk show shit. And I had only known of her to be like be a talk show host for such a long time. It's just like, to me, she was the same ilk as like Phil Donahue. Not quite Jerry Springer. Jerry Springer was bottom of the barrel, but like her and like Phil Donahue and Sally Jesse, like they were all kind of like that same ilk. So watching her start acting was like a fucking like, it was a total mind blow to me when I was a kid.
Color Purple. I believe Color Purple was before she got her talk show.
Wait, really? How old is the Color Purple? Because she was like
early 80s.
I didn't know it was that far back.
And I mean, again, great film.
1985.
But great film, but super damn depressing.
Maybe so this depressing. Is what helped get her
it did.
Talk show career.
It launched her career.
Holy shit. I didn't know that.
and it really helped launch Whoopi Goldberg's career as an actress as opposed to just a comedian.
Wow, man, I'm gonna have to. To be real, I know it's a depressing movie, but I do want to see it. I actually do want to see it. You've sold me on it. Just don't show it to the lizard.
Yeah, don't let Doodle watch it.
Yeah, exactly. So, getting back to that, so a part of her tail ripped off. We put some Neosporin on the wound, and we vet wrapped it. So it is covered. It is safe. It is secure. And then we spent all Saturday reworking the inside of her cage, and it was 4 hours of contortionist hell for me. But also it was kind of sasatisfying because
where was Doodle during all of the reconstruction?
So because we couldn't, here's the thing. Because her tail was healing, her tail is healing, we couldn't put her in the bath. Now, normally what happens is with lizards, a large lizard like that, what we do is we normally like to bathe her, and when we bathe her, she poops in the tub. That's just kind of like the thing that she does as a lizard.
No, lizards love pooping in water.
Yes, lizards love pooping in water. That's great. Unfortunately, we couldn't have that happen because she's got an open wound, and it would just get soaked up by the vet wrap, and it would then be
Another thing to add really quick.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things about, again, we talked, I mentioned earlier about getting into reptiles as pets for your kids and whatnot.
Yeah.
Make sure always when after you are handling reptiles, you wash your hands because they do carry various bacteria on them.
Oh, salmonella is very common in birds and in reptiles. Since they're related.
You just want to clean yourself. Also, just another addition, especially when you're dealing with iguanas, they have one of the dirtiest mouths in the animal kingdom. If you get a bite from an iguana,
God, yeah,
go to the doctor immediately. You will need antibiotics. This is not you might need them.
No, you definitely need.
You need antibiotics. You need that to be cleaned out by a professional. You need them to give you a shot of antibiotics, not just antibiotic ointment. That will not be enough. They will infect the shit out of you if you are bitten by them. I'm not saying it happens all the time, except by greens are actually the worst about biting you. But still, they have nasty, dirty mouth.
Oh yeah, you want
to go get that taken care of.
100%, 100%. That is very that's very good to say in the middle of this situation. So, Doodle actually lived outside of her cage and into the middle of the room. So we just opened up the door, and she crawled out and hung out with Tash while I took care of a lot of the hardware problem. We blocked off certain parts of the cage. We actually extended the shelving, so that top shelving is now extended all the way out. So we took a couple of 2x4s and we routed them in you
reduced part of the fall risk with that.
We reduced a large amount of the fall risk. We just extended that top section. Now it goes all the way to the door, so there's no way she's going to fall off and hit that. And it's plexiglass. What's nice is that also blocks off the bottom part of her cage, so almost no light gets into the bottom part, which is great for her because she needs a little hideaway sleepy spot. She has the option to get in and out of a dark area, and an option to get up into a light area, and that light area is more blocked off, so there's more heat retention in a smaller area, which is good for her. And she has a dark area there's less light in there, so she is more able to basically she's more able to get comfortable and sleep. So it was an overall full improvement on all accounts just by adding I think we added an 11-inch platform towards the front.
Well, and that also gives her more of that in that basking area. That gives her a little more area to stretch out and be more comfortable in that spot. So that's good.
It's also a feeding area as well. So what's nice is that basking and feeding area, being that it's extended more toward the door, now is it's easier access for us to place a bowl right in, open the door and just place a bowl there, rather than have to reach in and risk getting attacked by her when she needs to eat. If we're holding food, she sees it and she leaps on that door. But now there's
and let's add, I've been in that few times, and almost every time I go in that room, she either assumes that I have food or that I am food, because
she tries to attack
or
pants
it's just the territorial thing. She's definitely alert and prepared, and would charge me, I think, if given the opportunity.
And that just means she's healthy. So we know that there's no problem. We didn't also, that was one of the things to let people know as well. In the middle of this injury and all that kind of stuff, we saw absolutely no change in her personality. She is the same bounce. She's not lethargic. She's not feverish. She's not, she's okay. She's going to be okay. We're very glad she's going to be okay. But I definitely am very glad that we were able to modify the situation and be able to take care of her and make sure that she's going to be all right. I think she's honestly going to have a bit better a life now. Finding the piece, dude, we were thinking we were looking at entire cage reconstruction, on the inside, creating a multi-tiered, stair-stepping, almost shelving area where she could walk up. We thought that she got her tail caught in the branches that we had that lead up to the top area and all this kind of stuff.
In some ways, this was the best case scenario as far as where she was injured, in that you only had to change a very small part of her enclosure to make it safer. And again, the one thing to think about is, how long has this enclosure been in that room?
Oh God, 5 years.
And in 5 years, this is the first injury that she's gotten from the enclosure.
Right.
That is a really good track record in the situation.
Yes.
And freak confluence of accidents that, again, require just a minimal change in things. I do want to add right here that you were talking about her mood being good and whatnot. This is a good rule for pets, for kids, and since we're getting at this point where all of our parents are starting to get a little bit older, if the thing that you are caring for, the living thing that you are caring for, if their mood doesn't seem to be too altered, they're eating, they're peeing, and they're pooping, they're probably okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are good. Those are kind of good rules to go by. If any one of those things is disrupted, that's when you really need to be paying more attention to what's going on with them. And again, there are people who won't like me comparing animals to people, but the comparisons do stick in a lot of things, because we are still animals. We may be higher evolved animals with bigger brain to body ratios than some of these other things, but some of the things, the base things, still hold true.
Yes,
with dealing with all of them. Mood isn't too significantly altered or inappropriately altered. They're eating, they're drinking, they're peeing, they're pooping. The thing is probably okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that works for your kids too. That works for your older parents that you're going to start having to take care of, because they're going to get to that point where you'll have that moment of, oh crap, my dad or my mom, if you still have those around, crap, they're old now. They're dealing with being old now. Oh crap, we got to do something different now. As long as they're doing all of those things, you're good to go. When one of those things starts falling off, you really need to pay more attention and start figuring out how to help that living thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, exactly. So, in review, or in summary here, it sucks. Things happened, but I feel very fortunate. We both were. She's okay. She has a better living situation now, which is nice. It's just we kind of went into overdrive, and honestly, I'm kind of proud of what we were able to do with that cage without causing, without too much stress. Man, I'll tell you what, there was a certain level of fulfillment to it, but boy, I had to contort myself in all types of positions to fit into a 4-foot box and an extension to things.
So what Mike is saying is, if there's any magicians out there that are looking for a short redheaded guy to be their magician's assistant, Mike may be able to help you out.
Bro, I didn't say that I was willing to do shit like that. This is an emergency situation. I will not do it for the purposes of entertainment. Thank you very much.
For the right price?
Don't you fucking dare.
I'm just saying.
All right,
Everybody's got a price. So that again, these are the type of things that while it can be frustrating sometimes to have to put off, say, doing the podcast for these emergency things that have seemed to, again, this year's just been full of like things happening. I know that last Sunday after we did our podcast, and after middle of the day or so, we had a household thing happen here where one of my children had a very difficult day. An extremely difficult day. I think I told you about this. I'm not going to go into details here on the podcast, right? Did I tell you about the younger son's difficult day?
I'm not sure I remember, but you don't necessarily have to talk about it here.
I'll go through after we're done here.
Okay.
He had a very difficult day and dealt with a lot of emotional stuff that last Sunday. And it was bad. It was a bad day. These are the things that, as we are at the age that we are, with the responsibilities that we have, be they, job, household, the pets that we have curated, the children that we might have, the peripheral family members, like, siblings that we're helping deal with stuff, parents that are, needing different things in their lives or changing and whatnot. This is something that we're at the age in our generation where we're going through some of these things. Most of us have gotten at least some things that we've established in life. We've been adults for half of our life now. We spent half of it as kids. We're now at the halfway point of we're at the adulthood halfway point, 20 years, whatever, as kids, 20 years now for most of us as adults or more. And we have these things that are established that we are responsible for, that do cause the extra stresses, that cause the things to be moved around. And I think it's a necessary thing to discuss those and realize that it's okay for those stresses in life to come up and having to deal with those, and certain things have to be rearranged and moved, and the ability to be malleable with those things, knowing that we never know what kind of stresses our responsibilities are going to bring to us. And that's part of this, adulthood, of having those responsibilities and again, when we think about how much happened in the first 20 years of our life when we step into adulthood, and now we're at least 20 years past all of that. It's sobering to think of how those things can, really shape the course of where we're going. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And the fact that you sometimes have to just make accommodation for things, and you have to be okay making accommodation for things. You have to be okay saying that you can't do certain things, or you have to push off certain things, be it with friends, with family, whatever, because those responsibilities take the forefront over what other things that you may want to do and may have to do. That's an okay thing. I know that I was one that learned that very early on in my adulthood with once I had kids, because I had them at a very early age.
Mm-hmm.
At least nowadays it's considered an early age to have had kids. I mean, I was I was 22 and already a dad of my first kid. For this generation, that's considered young to have had a kid. I mean, previous generations,
definitely.
The grandmother who lives in the house with us, my wife's grandmother,
mm-hmm.
all three of her kids were already done born by the time she was 22. All three of her kids were born by that point. So, previous generations, not quite as 22 wouldn't have been quite as early, but for our generation, that is still early. You have people that are our age now that are just now having their first kids, or just having, have kids that are still, what I would consider fairly little, under the age of 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have a mutual friend. We won't say who the friend is. We have a mutual friend who has a still relatively young child, and that mutual friend's a few years older than us. And that's, that's normal, more so now in our generation, for people to be somewhat established in adulthood before they're having their children. And some, again, that don't have them at all. And again, that's a perfectly reasonable choice. It really is.
Yeah.
But but still, even the ones that don't have the children as their responsibilities, they have responsibilities that are equally as important to them. And again, you sometimes have to learn the idea that those responsibilities that you've accepted, that you've put upon yourself as yours, do take precedence sometimes not sometimes, all times, over the responsibilities of the people outside of that, And it's one of those adult lessons to learn and to be able to work with. And like I said, I got it at an early age. Once my kids were born, it was very much anything that happened outside of my roof, outside of my household, you're on hold, independent of what's going on with my wife and my kid, and then kids with the plural when the rest came.
Mm-hmm.
You're on hold outside of that because I need to worry about my responsibilities here. And that, that's where you sometimes grow distant with friends because they don't get the same level of responsibilities at the same time. I mean, I know that when you and I first reconnected, years ago with the band and all of, with your band and all of that, the level of responsibilities that you had in comparison to the level of responsibilities that I had, there was a vast difference. It was you living with roommates and your responsibilities were kind of you and the band. And I would say not a whole lot more beyond that at that point in your life. And now you have a much larger level of responsibility with your wife, your household of pet children. These things change and adapt, and it doesn't always happen at the same time for everybody. Again, that is okay. It's the ability to understand that what each person's situation is, what their responsibilities are, and what their priorities need to be, and then respecting that other person's priorities and needs, and knowing that, just because it's not the same as yours doesn't mean it's not equally as important to them, and you need to understand, respect. I don't say you need to, you should. You should understand and respect what other people's needs and priorities are and be willing to work within that with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed.
Now, on to a lighter note.
Okay.
We're going to go to a lighter note in this.
Okay.
Because I have a little bit of an update from the last podcast.
Okay.
Due to the change in schedule, I was able to do a few things around my house on Friday night. Since we weren't podcasting, I did a few things to help out my wife with a few things that she's doing, including we did spend part of this week. I spent part of this week in communication with your wife, which is funny. My wife is weird about certain things. She, as much as I know you remember her as being very kind of outgoing, right? Social and outgoing.
Yeah.
She has become a little bit more withdrawn about being social and outgoing. And so she's learned that she likes to use me as the communication between people as opposed to communicating directly with people herself. So I'm not entirely sure. I know some of the dynamic and some of the things that are going on with it.
Mm-hmm.
But she also knows that I like to talk to people. I like to talk in general. So she, it kind of works in the sense of, in a crowded room full of people, she does not want to be the center of attention and the mouthpiece of anything. She knows that I do. And it's a perfect balance. She just tells me what to say and I just say it because I have no problem doing that. I love being the center of attention in those situations. I know when not to be. I know when it's other people's time to be center of attention. And I stand at the back and let people be their center of attention when it's their time to be.
Okay.
But if it's necessary for me to do it, I have no problem whatsoever. I will get right up there and say whatever I need to say. Don't bother me a bit. And so I the other night, of course, I tried to get a hold of you to ask some questions regarding some new pet investments that my wife wanted to make. She has decided that there is one specific pet that she now wants to get, and she had some questions about providing appropriate enclosure situations for that pet because it's one of the few that we have not had yet, and so do not have as much research as my wife did. There was some conflicts within the research, and she was trying to get some information. And
there's a lot of opinions about that kind of stuff. So you gotta be able to approach it with a level head, or talk to somebody who can. Well,
and that's my wife definitely regards your wife as being an expert in many different things. There's some crossover because we've had similar pets, so we have some similar understanding of similar pets. There was a time before where we did have rats, and that was something that my wife hadn't had since she was a teenager, and she knew when she was a teenager what they did with the rats was completely wrong, but it's what they knew to do in the 90s. And so there was consultation with your wife during that period because your wife had experience with rats.
Mm-hmm.
This new pet was one you guys have experience with. We had not yet. It being a leopard gecko. That is the new pet that she wants to get.
Nice.
And so she was curious of asking questions. I, of course, my first step, even though technically speaking, I knew your wife before I knew you.
Yes.
And I was friends with your wife before, in a sense, she was a customer of mine. Before I knew you. So, I could very easily just talk to your wife, but you and I are at this point have more of the close friendship than me and your wife have, which is appropriate. But I went to you first because normally I do. So I the other night I sent you the message, hey, is your wife person awake? And then there's nothing, and then there's nothing, and there's nothing. I'm like, wow. I mean, this Mike just doesn't like me anymore. So then I sent a message to your wife, which, by the way, she responded immediately to me. Because she always does. Whenever I send her a message, she responds immediately. I don't know when you're going to respond.
Asshole, is this a guilt trip or a story?
Both.
Fuck you.
But we finally got the conversation going back and forth with me. Of course, when you finally responded, you respond with "please hold," and then I respond with already talking to her. She responded before you did. She is exceedingly helpful. I have to add the guilt trip part because the guilt trip is part of the story. That's part of the humor of the story. And then you send me a picture of your enclosure for this is your specific,
yes, because
gecko,
she
right?
asked me because I was the only one who had pictures.
Which, by the way, the name of your leopard gecko?
Jeffrey Lubowski.
Which is just brilliant.
Yes, thank you.
At first, your wife told me that your gecko was named Jeff, and I'm like, after Hefe, which is a friend of ours. I'm like, why'd you name it after Hefe? Okay, I mean, Hefe's cool. I love Hefe. I miss seeing him. Like he was one of those people that gave the best hugs ever. Mainly because he's like really, really tall. For anybody,
right?
I'm not going to say all of his name, but Hefe was is because he's still around. He's very tall, at least in comparison to me, because I'm short. So anybody taller than me is tall. But he's over 6 foot. What is he, like 6'2"?
I want to say he's like 6'2". Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
whenever
tall sucker,
and he's a little string bean thing, but that's okay. At least he was. It's been a while since I've seen him. He may have put on a little bit of weight with life. But I loved giving him hugs because I was just the right height that I could rest my head up against his chest while I was giving him a hug. So it was great. He's fantastic to give hugs to. And I love the guy. He's a sweet, amazing, wonderful guy. I'm sad that I haven't seen him in a long while. I have talked to him a little bit online. I've gotten some pictures of things, which are nice. Mm-hmm. Very cool. Very excited about the pictures. But no, he's a great guy. Love him. I'm like, okay, I mean, you don't have anything named after announcer Scott or the guitarist. We can say Carl's name, right? We've talked about him on here.
We could say yes. We could say Carl's name.
Yeah, you don't have anything named after Carl, and I mean those are great guys to name stuff after. But Hefe, all right, let's go Hefe. But nope, it wasn't named after Hefe.
Nope.
So, but still, cool.
I thought it was pretty great that you thought that first, and I didn't even think about that when I named him. I was just like, I wanted to throw a twist. Like I said, I name pets human or goofy names, and I was like, you know what? I want to do something else. And it's because it's so ridiculous. I get it. I want to tell you how I get this, where I got this from. Oh my God, what's the name of that? It was a Steve Martin movie with Queen Latifah. I think it's called Bringing Down the House.
Yes.
And there is a
no means no.
Yes.
No means no.
So there's a character in there who's like an old racist white lady she's like an heiress to like a plantation and all this kind of stuff, but she's super bougie and just a completely hateful type character, just totally like completely out of touch, type rich person. But one of the funniest things in that movie is the fact that she has a dog named William. And then she states it's a pug. It's like a smashed face pug with and she always dresses it ridiculous, and it's the most dumb thing she does all the dumb things that rich people do with dogs. Like that's the catch. But she says what his name is, and his name is William. And it's short for William Shakespeare. And the way that she says it is it's so ridiculous and so dumb that the first time I had ever seen that, I paused the movie because I laughed so hard at it. And huh?
That I just want to add that's Joan Plowright, who is like a super famous British actress.
Oh yeah,
and she is fantastic in the movie.
Yeah, I've seen her in multiple films. She's a fantastic actress. She was great as this character in this film. She was so good. But the fact that the dog's name was William Shakespeare, it sounds like such a Steve Martin joke. Like he would do that. He would write something like that, and I know he had part of the writing in this film. He had to have some participation, or maybe it was an ad-lib line and then they just ran with it. It just seems like such a ridiculous thing, but the way that she had said it, she was so proud that she named her dog William Shakespeare, and it was just, the execution of the line was so good, but it always stuck with me. And then after that, I was like, if I were to ever have a pet, especially a dog, I would just name it a human name. Because it would be so ridiculous to have to explain that your dog's name is a human name. But the first time I had done it with Clint Eastwood because he smelled like dirty hair. And so that was the name link. That was the reason why we did it. Adam West, the reason why we named him Adam West is when we got him, he perched himself up on Tasha's shoulder and sat there with his ears forward like a bat, like a little Batman. And it was like, his name is Adam West. Like it's just I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it creatively. And I honestly had no reasoning behind calling him Jeffrey Lebowski, aside from the fact that I kept calling him little dude on the way home.
That makes sense.
And I was like, you know what? That's what his name is now. He is Jeffrey Lebowski. That's his name. And
I get it. I totally get it. I mean,
thank you for allowing me to rant on that dumb, ridiculous thing I do.
Huh?
I said, thank you for allowing me to rant on that dumb, ridiculous thing I do.
Oh, no,
it's something I'm very proud of about my character. I love it. I love doing stuff like that. It's it's
fantastic. Pets are one of those things that you do get a little bit more flavor with being able to name them weird things.
Yeah.
Again, I've made the illusion all throughout this this specific episode of the podcast. You got to be a little more careful with what you name your kids, and you do. Admittedly, for my middle child, my younger boy, we got a whole lot of heat for what we named him. Mm-hmm. And part of that was because there's a naming convention in my family where the males in my family, it's the only kind of tradition that my family has. The males in my family have a first name that starts with the letter J and a middle name that starts with the letter A. That goes back a couple generations in the family. There have been a few family members that have broken it. That's their problem, not mine. I did not break that. My wife knew that going into the situation, that if we had any boys, they would have those names. Girls, luckily, can have whatever names you want them to have, but boys, this was kind of a naming tradition in the family. Mm. And so we've got a few Johns, we've got a few Joes, or Josephs anyway. Mm. There's some that don't go necessarily by that name. We only have one James, luckily, and I've done the best that I can to make sure that doesn't happen again. But that's a convention. And when you name your first kid an unusual J name, your second one you also have to have an unusual J name. I didn't want to go with all the ones that had already been done previous, so we went a little bit weird with the second kid. And for a long time there was a lot of heat because of it, because we went weird. We went real weird. There were some family members that literally, when we told them the name of the child before the child was born, when we knew we were having a boy and we knew this was what the name was going to be, we had family that flat out said, we will never call him by his first name. Guess what? They do. They totally do. They don't call him by his middle name. Interestingly, his middle name was actually inspired by a listener of the podcast. So,
oh wow.
But anyway, yes, named after a listener of the podcast, who now we know at least one person that listens to the podcast is a member of my family. So, that's maybe the only one that listens to it regularly, but still, it's somebody. But with pets, you get a little bit more freedom because you're not saddling some living thing with a name that they have to go write down on forms for the rest of their life. That has to be on their license. That has to be on their work name tag. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different of a situation with pets. You get to have a little bit more fun with it, and you can let some of that free spirit go and see the places where it takes you. I know a lot of our pets we've had that are that have been kind of like a lot of our bearded dragons. We've gotten them when they already have names. We ended up with 2 Spikes and had to rename one of them because we had 2 Spikes. One was Spike, one was Ike, because you can't have 2 Spikes. But we have, there's some interesting names. We have one that's, that actually has 2 names. When it was given to us, with the, the name of Phoenix. I do not call it Phoenix. I call it Pahoenix because I'm a stickler for correct pronunciation.
Yeah.
But, we've also incorporated, we've incorporated some funny names with some of the different things. We have a Redfoot tortoise named Bowser.
That's
that
fantastic.
one I didn't come up with. We have our Sulcutta tortoise named Echo, with literally the idea that when he gets to full size, when he's walking around, he's going to make echoes with all the noise he's going to make. That gigantic thing. Lately, my wife has been naming all of the actual rodents, the hamsters and the mice. I leave those to her. They are actually named after characters in like horror movies, basically. So I know there's a Lydia right now. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. Lydia's the only one that's sitting in my. Basically, if they're a female character in a horror movie of some type or another, that's what she's naming each one of the rodents at this point. The sister-in-law got a guinea pig and named it Wicket, because it's one of the hairless guinea pigs and it reminded her of an Ewok. So when the wife got a guinea pig as well, she named it Leia. So yeah, the funny names happened. It's some type of a skink that we have that my son wanted to name Inferno, so I named it Dante. And yes, there's another, it's another connection to Clerks, but I was thinking more of Dante's Inferno. But that's the thing is you get to have more fun when it comes to naming pets. I mean, we have a cat that's named the electrified cat. His name is Sassy, and that just because he is a sassy cat, most people think because of the name that he's a girl. He is not, but he is very sassy. The other one is named Mordred because he's all black. Because my wife went for a deep dive on King Arthur stuff.
Oh man,
yeah, Mordred's from he's Arthur and Morgaine's son.
I have to actually after the podcast, I'll tell you about a record I picked up that's actually very related to that.
Okay. And so the this new lizard though, this new gecko, we do not have it yet. But I claimed naming rights to it, and I told my wife what name I wanted to give it, and she was like, okay. And I said, well, 1, it's a Star Wars name, it's a newer Star Wars name, but 2, it's a statement of fact that I'm hoping to hold still with you. And she's like, okay, what's the name? Said, I think you should name it Omega. She's like, Omega? Why? I said, well, there's a character in the new Star Wars animated series Bad Batch that's named Omega. It is it's the last clone that was made at the Camino cloning facility before the facility was shut down after the events of the Empire being created. It's the last clone of Jango Fett, but it's actually a female clone of Jango Fett.
Oh.
And it's rumored and theorized, and the second season of Bad Batch has just started, but the rumor and theory is that this was the last clone made of Jango Fett, a female clone of Jango Fett, and what they were trying to do, and this will lead into the events of what happens in The Rise of Skywalker, they were trying to clone in Force sensitivity. and this character will end up being force sensitive. There's been nothing to show it yet, but that's kind of the theory. The going theory is that Omega will be force sensitive. And so I thought, hey, yeah, for a gecko, it's a Star Wars thing, but also Omega is basically the last letter of the traditional Greek alphabet. My hope is this is the last extra animal that my wife will get, and she will stop bringing things into the zoo. Now, I know that this is a pipe dream of mine, but I'm hoping that the name will stick and be the last one. But it still doesn't beat yours, especially when you just introduce the leopard gecko as Jeff and don't say the whole thing at first. That's hilarious. Like, hi, that's my gecko, Jeff. Seriously? Jeff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, Jeff.
That's exactly
Whatever.
why.
I mean, I have a dog who's named Sam, so
Nice.
but that's we again, one that we got him with the name Sam. I decided that his entire name was Samuel Adams. So
Fantastic.
And I'm speaking more of the beer, not of the Revolutionary War figure, which I know the beer is named after the
Yeah, I was gonna
Revolutionary
say.
War figure, but I'm thinking of the beer when I call him Samuel Adams.
Was he even? I'm curious. Was Samuel Adams like? Did he run a brewery or anything? Is he related to that
Yes.
in any? Oh, that's what
Yes.
it was.
Yes,
cool.
That's why.
Okay.
That's totally why.
That's dope.
But yeah, no, he's Samuel Adams.
That's awesome.
And again, Jolly, the other dog we didn't get to name. It was just the dog was named Jolly, and that's what he responds to. And he's not Jolly. He's pain in the ass puppy dog. He's still such a puppy. But anyway, so if you learn anything from this, have pets to give them weird, wacky names, human wacky names, but still weird, wacky names,
Mhm.
and try to do the fairly normal names for your kids. Let me add, by the way, that my daughter, who is my youngest, has a name that literally nobody pronounces right the first time they see it, and nobody can ever spell it right. We had a person that was involved with our family working with that child for like 10 years that never, in the entire 10-year span, never pronounced her name right. Never. And we didn't do like the really, really weird spelling of names. Admittedly, it's a made up name, but we didn't do like the super weird spelling where there's like letters that shouldn't be there in there. It's, if you just read it and think about it for a second, it's not that weird a name, but it's weird enough apparently that people cannot pronounce the damn thing. And it's like, okay, I'm not sure. And I do want to add the reason for that is we did think about that very heavily. We wanted kids that have I've said my wife's name on here. With me being a James and her being a Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
We did not want our kids with boring normal names like ours. And
Right.
yes, we felt that our names were super boring.
I mean,
you got the same
they're
problem.
common.
You have
They're
one
common,
of those boring
but
names too.
I honestly, I think when I was born, it was the most common name. It was the most common boy's name was Michael. Like that was like common. I think it held common. It held the most common boy's name for like freaking like 20 years or something like that. I don't even know if it's really changed. Like I mean, yeah,
Oh no, it's a very common name. I mean, and again, James is too. I mean,
Yeah.
how many times were you in school and didn't have a classroom with another Mike in it or another Michael in it?
Oh, all over the place.
Everywhere you go.
Yeah. There's actually a
Everywhere.
kid that I went, I think it was in like 3rd or 4th grade with. His name was Mike Prince, which I thought that was kind of funny.
Okay.
I mean, we would go back and forth King and Prince shit all the time. It's funny.
I get it.
It was just a
I
name.
get
It
it.
was just funny name shit. It's really funny. So I just Googled most popular names for boys. And the top is, from what I see on the list, is James.
Yep.
Is the most popular name. But there's other ones in here like Noah, Liam. Liam's kind of come up there recently. John, I'm surprised how far down the list it is. Logan is another one. Aiden, Owen. Luke. Ha! That okay. Owen and Luke. Those kind of make sense for specific reasons.
The Wilsons.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, number 1 most popular boys' names is Liam. Noah, Oliver, Elijah, James, William, Benjamin. Dude. Oh my gosh. I am 50, 60, 70. Holy shit. Dominic, Xavier, Adam, Micah. Michael isn't even on this list. It's not even in the top 100 now.
Well, that's lucky for you.
That's insane. It is just dropped.
Yeah, my name is still up there. So
Mateo, Malachi, Maddox is higher. Messiah.
Now look at
Messiah.
Look at
oh, that's
women's
funny.
names.
King is higher on the list. Oh, wait, hold on. I think I just found it. Oh, I overshot it. It's number 17. Michael is number 17. Yeah, it's still in the top 100 and top 20. But there are so many other. Theodore is number 10 on this list.
What?
Yeah, dude. Jackson, Alexander, Daniel, Ethan.
Wait, how's Jackson spelled? Is it Jackson or is it Jaxon?
Nope, it's Jackson. Yeah, it is not with an X.
By the way, the reason that I was mentioning the weird spelling of names because every time I think of that now, I think of the She-Hulk TV series.
Jackson with an X is 55, though.
Yeah, Jackson with an X is in there. I think of the She-Hulk series and the character of Madison, and her saying that there's a Y in her name, but it's not where you think it is. And it's the character's name is spelled Madisynn.
Wow.
And it's purposely spelled that way to be annoying, and the character is 100% annoying, but like brilliant and beautiful and wonderful. It's one of the best parts of the She-Hulk series is Madison's character. She is fantastic, super hilarious. But that's, there is that weird spelling trend that like I'm not gonna do the old man thing and bitch about it, but it can be a little strange to see the way people spell certain names and the letters that they put into them.
Wow, these are okay. There's another Jackson on the list. So there's Jaxons in the 50s. Jaxson. Jaxson is 101. Boy, there's a few of them in here. Luca, Luka. I saw Kai, Kai, which I know that means warrior.
Isn't that a car company?
Kai? Kai?
No, it's KIA.
Kia.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Roman, Silas. That's crazy, man. I've seen Ryder. I've seen a bunch of Ryder. Sawyer. That's interesting. Legend. Wait, the word legend as a name, as a first name.
Yes. I do want to add real quickly for maybe another family member of mine who might listen to this. Again, I'm not trying to say anything bad about people who have unusual spellings of their kids' names. It is just a common trend. I do have a family member that each one of their kids to have similar spelling in their names or similar convention in their name has an unusual spelling in each one of their kids' names, has unusual letters in there for the spelling to have a similar convention within the names. And I get it. You're trying to get the similar family thing with their names. And that's I'm not saying anything bad about that. I am saying that does sometimes make it more difficult on certain names to figure out what the pronunciation of the name is, just because you're getting things in certain areas that are not exactly what you expect. My daughter's name isn't necessarily that. But it is a made up name, so it's something that people are not necessarily familiar with. And, actually, if we had used one of those alternate letters, people would pronounce it right every single time.
Right.
But they don't. So out of curiosity, can you check the women's names and see what the top women's names are?
Yeah,
I have a feeling that Sarah will be in the top 20.
Okay, let me take a look. Yeah, I'm going to take most popular girls' names.
While you're doing that, I did want to mention, of course, today being Sunday, the San Francisco 49ers did win their game last weekend. We did talk about that.
Hey,
against
all
the
right.
Seahawks. They are playing again today against the Dallas Cowboys at home in Levi. And we do know now that if whoever wins this game, whichever team, the Cowboys or the Niners, will be going to Philadelphia to face the Philadelphia Eagles for the NFC Championship game. So it's going to be a hell of a game next week. It'll be a hell of a game today, hopefully, and a hell of a game next weekend, whoever goes. Obviously, I want it to be the 49ers, but whoever goes is going to have earned it and deserve to be there. And then that's going to be a hell of an NFC Championship game. I have a feeling that whoever wins that game will probably go on to win the Super Bowl, because I feel the NFC teams are stronger than the AFC teams right now. But no shit talking, no smack. Just I'm not going to jinx anything. This is going to be a hard fought game for both the Niners and the Cowboys. The one thing I will say is I do think that the Niners do have a slight edge in the situation, but that doesn't mean anything. That may also be my bias as a fan. So the team that wins will be the team that wins, and that hopefully earned it, and hopefully the refs aren't the reason why a team wins, regardless of which team wins. Because even if it's my team that wins, if the refs are responsible for it, I don't like it.
Yeah, I can understand that. Okay, I found the name. 92.
Sarah is 92 now?
Yep.
Oh, lucky for her.
There's a ton of them now. So let's see. I'm looking at some interesting ones that are near the top of the list. Ava, AVA, Isabella, let's see, Harper, Luna, Abigail, Scarlett, which makes sense. Layla, Hazel. Dude, did they just go back in time for names? Grace, Aurora. That's one I can see is pretty modern. Stella? Really? Stella's number 41.
I actually know. I know a baby Aurora.
Kinsley. Delilah. Obviously, Aaliyah is number 61.
Hold on a second. You know, Delilah, every single time when she gets older and people start going into retro music.
Oh yeah,
it'll be in that retro time.
Oh, she's never gonna live it down. She's gonna hate it.
Oh yeah, she's gonna have so many people coming up to her. Hey there.
Hey there. Just that, like, that's it. Okay. Let's see some other ones here. Serenity. Ariana. Huh?
I know Serenity.
Oh. Sadie, Haley, Genesis. Number 75.
Okay.
Ava, 93 with an E instead of an A. A was more common up top. Raylyn, Liliana.
By the way, I know an Ava with the A.
Eloise. Melody. Ada Lynn, Adalynn, Ada Lynn, Brielle. Let's see, Margaret, Eliana, Elliana, Cecilia. I don't even know how to pronounce that one. How do you pronounce that one? Ximena. Simena?
Hold on. Spell it again.
XIM as in Mary, EN as in Nancy, A. There's some cool names in here. 155 is Genevieve.
I think the X will be pronounced like a probably pronounced like Simena.
Yeah, that's why I was like, that's what I thought. It was like Simena, but like maybe? I'm not familiar with it though. There's another one, Riley, Ryleigh.
Yeah.
Faith, Anastasia. Boy, then you get more common as farther down the list. Amy, Ruth, Gemma. That's an interesting one.
Gemma.
Gemma. Gemma. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be Gemma, hard G.
Oh, you mean
Gemma?
But Gemma's a hard G.
Okay, so the other G. Sorry,
the soft G. Yeah. Zuri, Zuri, Zuri.
Yes, that's definitely more common.
Zara, Lelia, Layla, Leila. Leela, like Lila. Melissa, Evangeline, Sutton as a first name. Whoa, that's interesting. Octavia.
I know one of those.
Do you know an Octavia?
Yes.
Wow.
You know the mom.
Oh, really?
You do.
Oh, well, that's cool. Miriam, Adelaide, Delaney, Annabelle, Reagan. I've met a lot of Reagans, actually. Quite a few Reagans. Paige. Met some Pages. Dahlia. That's kind of cool. Vivienne. Hallie. McKenna. It just seems Noah, Noa. Callie, yeah. Cali. Dream? The word dream.
Yeah.
Charlie, Charli, with no E.
From what I'm hearing here, though, Legend and Dream need to get together and have some kids.
Esme.
That's Twilight.
Ah.
I'm sick that I know that.
Raven, Joy, Adeline, Anaya. Yeah, man, Azalea. You know what? I will say, and I'm getting way down. Astrid. Astrid is a girl's name.
Yes.
That's great. I just like that it's on the list. Like I'm impressed that it's on the list. And we're getting way down. We're like 406 the 460s here. Like I just keep going. Yeah. This is kind of cool. Holy shit. Jennifer is 493. Madeline is 490.
Oh, so we're done with the Jennifers finally. God, I'm glad.
Way down. Now, I think that's as of 2022 is what I'm looking at. Like the most popular names as of 2022.
I mean, how many Jennifers did we have in school? So many Jennifers.
There were a lot of Jennifers, man.
A lot of Jennifers, a lot of Megans.
Calliope.
Calliope.
Oh. I'm so sorry.
That's on the podcast forever.
It is. I just read it straight out. I didn't think about it.
Also, the name that by the way is the name of a character from Grey's Anatomy. So.
Oh, is that it? Is that it? Calliope?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. I've never.
Yes. Callie Torres from Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, and then she goes by Callie anyway.
She goes by Callie. Her name is Calliope Iphigenia Torres.
Good Lord.
And I'm embarrassed that I know that too.
Is it Iphigenia was Mrs. Doubtfire's first name that
yes, I believe so. That's a little better to know that. Middle names of characters. Although the middle name is a major plot point in one episode of Grey's Anatomy, still it's
oh man, that's great.
Yeah. But anyway, away from the shifting again, away from the names. I said I did say I had another update from the last podcast. Yesterday I did some shopping again, some Saturday morning shopping.
Yeah.
Because my wife and I have taken off the entire month of January to kind of get things in line and deal with all the craziness that's happening from doing our Saturday date night stuff. We'll start back again in February, which by the way is when we'll be going to pick out the new leopard gecko, which again I hope will be the final addition to the zoo family, and hopefully there will be no more additions.
Dude,
hopefully.
that's like your wife hoping another guitar doesn't show up in the house.
Believe me, the last guitar I brought into the house, there was some sidelong glances at me. I had to really, really, really work on the convincing of bringing that guitar into the house. And that was
sure
a guitar
you did.
I got from you, sir. And the only reason I got away with it was because of the fact that it was something that I did not have yet. I did not technically have an acoustic guitar that had the electric components built into it. I had multiple acoustic guitars. I have a bunch of electric guitars. I have a semi-hollow body electric guitar.
Oh, that's cool.
And
I do not have a semi-hollow. I've just never. I don't have a semi-hollow. I have never had good luck with semi-hollows.
The one I have, it's an Ibanez Art Core. It's a really nice guitar. It's really, really nice.
I mean, I like the design of the semi-hollow. It doesn't lend itself well to what I do.
Which is understandable.
Yeah.
And every one of my guitars I got because each one has a different sound quality to it. Each one is built differently. Each one is a slightly different style. So each one has different sound quality, different kind of pickup situation in each one. So the idea being, again, each one sounds, just the raw sound of the guitar is a little bit different than the other one. And in some cases, identifiably so. And so that's the reason why I have the different ones that I have, and I've purposely gotten those, is for just a slight difference in the sound of the guitar. And again, an acoustic electric was something I did not have, so I was able to at least sell her on that portion of things. But yeah, other than that, I've been really good about not bringing any more guitars into the house. And the records are entirely her fault because she started all that. So whatever records I bring into the house, she's got to deal with. She started it. But no, like I said, I was out doing shopping, and I was able to finally get my wife the pizza that she's been craving, because it's been too long that she hasn't had the pizza that she's wanted. I was finally able to get her the pizza she's been craving. And I was finally able to go back to Taco Twist.
How did it go?
I had to bring the food home instead of being able to sit in like a parking lot somewhere and eat it.
Oh, so you had to sit there and smell it all the way home.
I did.
And torture yourself slowly.
The fries were a little soggy, so they weren't as good, but they were still good, but they weren't as good. But again, I can chalk that up to them being a little soggy from the ride home.
Yeah.
The tacos themselves, exactly the same, perfect, amazing, so flipping good. But the best part about this is, depending on, with age and all of that stuff, depending on where I get food going out to eat, part of the experience is the flavor. Part of the experience, and sometimes the more important part of the experience, is how I feel after eating the meal. And whether it agrees with my stomach and intestinal tract, or whether it doesn't agree with those things. Sadly, we're old. These things happen to us. There's certain places that you eat that, if, for instance, you're feeling a little bit backed up, go have some Taco Bell. You won't be backed up for long. It's just that kind of a thing. The thing that's been really nice about both times that I've eaten at this place, no stomach issues at all. Everything is sat very well.
Oh, wonderful.
I feel full in a good way and in a fulfilled way, but no stomach issues, no backlash from eating there. It's been fantastic both times. So, just little update on that. It was good the second time. I will go back again, but I don't want to burn myself out on it. It's good food. I'm happy for it. Apparently in my area here, there's actually been a few posts on some of the like local area Facebook pages for the different neighborhoods and different communities in this area that people have been talking about this place and how wonderful it is.
Oh.
So, again, for anybody that knows where there's a Taco Twist, go try it. It's some damn good food.
That's awesome, man. Love it.
With that, Mike.
Yes.
I think we're about done for the day.
Yeah, I think this was quite fulfilling, I think. I liked the vibe of this one.
Where would people want to listen to us, or where would people be able to listen to us? Not necessarily want to, but be able to listen to us talk about tacos and reptile enclosures.
Well, you could catch us on our website, the XennialChronicles.com, or ZenChron if you don't want to type that much. You could also check us out on most major podcast platforms. They're all uploaded in audio, and our podcast is uploaded in video format to YouTube as well. Now, there's no cameras on us, and you get to basically just watch a waveform go by. But it is available on YouTube if you'd like to catch us there. While you are there, go ahead and, if you're listening to this in video format, underneath that video, please make sure that you click the like button and make sure that you click the subscribe button next to that. And what's next after that, James?
Bell.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Click the bell.
That's right. Click the bell. Make sure that you get notified the next podcast or video or whatever that we have, assuming the time that I have to actually put it together and put it out there. But yeah, make sure that you get notified the next podcast video that we have on YouTube as well. And I believe that is it for me, sir. How about you?
While you're on YouTube, please be sure to check out Mike's other two pages. First, we have his video game page, Chronicles Games. This is a page that he does with his wife where they do video game content, playing video games, doing voiceover, that kind of stuff. Obviously, we mentioned her a lot on this episode of the podcast.
Mhm.
If you want to get a little bit more insight into her personality, listen to her voice. You already heard Mike's voice, so whatever. Please check that out. Like, subscribe, click the bell on that. And then if you like Mike that much that you just want to hear more of Mike, check out Ruling Note Music. This is his other page where he talks about all stuff music related because Mike likes music.
Yes.
Like, subscribe, and click the bell on those too. Otherwise, we are done here today. Hopefully, barring any other weird 2023 things going on, we'll be back again for you next week.
Y'all have a good one.
Thank you for tuning in, friends. The journey continues next week.